South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem has taken new steps against checkpoints set up by tribes in the state in order to protect their citizens. She knows she is powerless to stop them, but is setting the stage for future court battles over resources in the state. So back on May 9th, I made an episode questioning the legality of tribal checkpoints set up by the Oglala and Cheyenne tribes on roads entering their reservations. Well, the battle has been ongoing, and just a few days ago, the governor posted an update on Twitter and the state COVID website. She also forwarded the material in a letter she wrote to the President of the United States. Here is the governor speaking about the updates in a recent address.
Last thing that I wanted to touch on today is a brief update on the situation with the tribal checkpoints. Despite weeks of attempts to start a conversation and to find a solution between me, Secretary Flute, and many others to resolve this matter informally, finding a solution that would respect tribal sovereignty, also state sovereignty and federal law, the tribes have continued to maintain these checkpoints on U.S. and state highways. So as you all remember, on May 8th, I sent a letter to the tribes, to Cheyenne River and to the Oglala Sioux, talking and asking and telling them to remove these checkpoints to be in compliance with the law. Following the refusal of Cheyenne River to remove those checkpoints, I asked the South Dakota Attorney General to order an investigation into these checkpoints. And that investigation, while it's still ongoing, has produced both affidavits and video recordings of these unlawful checkpoints that are in place. Today, I provided all of that material to the White House, to the Department of Justice, the Department of Interior, the congressional delegation, Senator Thune, Senator Rounds, Congressman Johnson, asking for their assistance in resolving this situation. I know that there are questions out there about respecting sovereignty. So I invite everybody to go to covid.sd.gov to review all the easements that are in place granting us the right to put these roads where they are. These are easements that the tribe did agree to, and the legal documentation is there showing that these checkpoints cannot lawfully be on U.S. and state highways. All of these letters can be found on covid.sd.gov, and I want to reiterate, the state is committed to slowing down the spread of COVID-19 in our state and committed to helping to protect the public health of our tribes and every single citizen in the state of South Dakota. We will continue to focus on science, facts, and data and make sure that we're working together with everyone here in this state to protect our citizens. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you may have.
Jeff Bannon, Associated Press, Minneapolis. Well, we got you here. So thanks for taking my question here. What do you expect the White House, DOJ, Interior, South Dakota's congressional delegation to do? That if you've provided this information to them, do you expect them to somehow intervene and to side with you in this legal struggle here with the tribes?
Well, this isn't taking sides. This is just simply upholding the law. And the Department of Justice has jurisdiction here. We're asking them to do their jobs and also asking for the help and partnership of the White House and our congressional delegation to encourage them to do so.
The legality of the tribe's rights on their lands is well documented, and most recently reaffirmed in the case of Rosebud Sioux Tribe v. State of South Dakota, in which the decision reads, "This action was originally commenced by the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, later joined by the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. The tribes, to enjoin the state of South Dakota from exercising civil and criminal jurisdiction over highways running through Indian lands in the state. The district court upheld the state's assertion. The tribes have appealed. The state has cross-appealed the district court's findings that its jurisdiction is concurrent with tribal authorities. We find the district court erred. Absent tribal consent, we hold the state of South Dakota has no jurisdiction over the highways running through Indian lands in the state. We reserve and remand to the district court to enter judgment in favor of the tribes." On May 13th, the National Congress of American Indians wrote a letter of support for the tribe's actions, stating, "The National Congress of American Indians stands with the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe in its efforts to protect its citizens from the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the core attributes tribal nations retain as governments is the authority to exclude. The NCAI reminds the governors of each state that treaty rights and rights to regulate reservation lands represent those self-governing rights which were never ceded and which pre-exist the United States. As part of the documents released online are copies of easements allowing the use of certain roads throughout reservation territory. Sort of. Most of the easements were agreed and signed in the 50s, before the court ruling. But here is the updated easement for Highway 212 that runs through the Cheyenne River Reservation. This easement was signed after the 1990 court decision, and right-of-way is given to the state of South Dakota Department of Transportation for the following purposes specifically: to grade, level, fill, drain, pave, build, maintain, repair, and rebuild a public road. So yes, the state has the right to enter, to maintain, or repair the road. Nothing more. In fact, in this easement application posted on the website, it states that upon revocation or termination of the right-of-way, the applicant shall, so far as is reasonably possible, restore the land to its original condition. Even the governor herself admitted back on April 28th that the state does not have jurisdiction.
And there is some controversy over who's allowed to go through and who's not. The state of South Dakota does not have jurisdiction in this area, but the federal government does.
So what's going on here? The governor's team is smart enough to know they would probably lose a court battle over the state highway checkpoints. But by pushing the issue up to the president and by making it seem as if the tribes are the ones being difficult, it starts to pave the way towards a future decision by Congress, the only group with the power to change the rights of the treaty. And the reason for changing the treaty has to do with resources. For one, as the pandemic was really ramping up in the United States back in April, the Keystone XL pipeline was given new life. Remember Standing Rock? Well, President Obama eventually bent to the pressure and blocked the pipeline, hailing the decision as a win for the climate. The protests by the tribes on the Standing Rock Reservation were fierce and moving, but some say it was opposition from white ranchers and farmers as well that ultimately forced Obama's hand. The Trump administration immediately reversed the decision when they came into office, but it was only during the last few months that the Keystone XL extension of the pipeline was rejuvenated on both the U.S. and Canadian sides. And court battles have already begun throughout the states it will traverse, most recently in Montana. In addition to the pipeline, uranium mining in the Black Hills has caused contamination to aquifers and water supplies. From this article from 2017 in the Rapid City Journal, Tishan Sapowin lives alongside the Cheyenne River on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation, downstream from Dewey Burdock. Sapowin said the whole project is illegal because the Black Hills belong to the Lakota under recognized treaty rights. The EPA has the power to grant or deny this, and it's racism and genocide all over again, she said. Do something right. Can you go home and look your children in the eye after granting this and know you did something right? Please don't poison me, my son, the kids who had the courage to sing a song for you tonight. Let's take a look at the letter from the governor to the president. In my opinion, this paragraph is the most important. This, however, is not simply a matter between a sovereign state and a sovereign tribal government. Rather, the federal government has an interest in interstate commerce, transportation of critical infrastructure goods, provision of services from critical infrastructure industries, and the uniform treatment of all travelers on a non-discriminatory basis. I like how she threw in the non-discriminatory basis as the least important aspect at the end, after critical infrastructure industries and goods. To me, that could mean anything, and is attempting to set the basis for the upcoming lawsuits, should they be needed to either steal more land from the tribes or to obtain actual uninhibited right-of-way access to tribal lands. According to the AP, Noem said Thursday her stance against tribes operating coronavirus checkpoints on federal and state highways isn't just about their response to the coronavirus pandemic, but about setting precedent on tribes' ability to shut down traffic in other situations. If we allow checkpoints to shut down traffic in this situation, then we are setting precedent for that to happen far into the future, Noem said. In contrast, in New Zealand, where similar legal issues were ongoing between residents and Maori natives, the police stepped in to help with the checkpoints. One of the key principles of the Policing Act is that the police should have a local community focus. Another section of the Act acknowledges that it's often appropriate or necessary for the police to perform some of its functions in cooperation with individual citizens, agencies, or bodies other than the police. That form of cooperation with iwi and hapu appears to have occurred in these checkpoints. TravelSouthDakota.com makes sure to mention that the state is open for business. As travelers from South Dakota and other states attempt to drive their potentially infected selves through the vulnerable reservations, the checkpoints are nothing more than an attempt to protect the citizens from the spread of the virus. Back to the statement from the NCAI. States should understand that tribal nations often have limited resources and face other unique challenges, such as historic trauma resulting from prior foreign-born illnesses and diseases, demographics that include a large percentage of high-risk individuals susceptible to COVID-19 complications, and lack of adequate healthcare facilities. During this current environment, we urge states to support tribal priorities, to respond to this pandemic, and to take active efforts to protect their citizens. So instead of trying to create strife between the tribes and the rest of the states for political gain and national attention, the governor should provide every resource available to help ensure the checkpoints run smoothly until they are no longer deemed necessary by the tribes themselves. Let's make sure to keep watching this story to help ensure not only that the tribes can keep their sovereignty, but so that critical infrastructure industries and goods like oil and uranium can't have their way over stolen treaty lands without proving that they are in the best interest of everyone in South Dakota, not just big business or the governor's career.